Hello and welcome to Untwisted Threads. 2024 has been quite an interesting knitting year for me. I knit some new things that I've never done before and also went through a period of time that I actually didn't want to knit any projects and then wanting to knit all the projects and not having enough hours in the day. So in today's video, I'm so excited to reflect on the projects that I did complete throughout the year of 2024. I will say a lot of these are my own designs, but I did knit a few things from other designers too. As an overview, I will be sharing about 14 knitted items, some larger than others, and also include a few projects currently on my needles. I decided to organize and go through them all in categories rather than chronologically. Now, I'm not trying to bore you with a long intro, so all of the patterns and yarns used will be listed in the description if they're available, and let's get started. Starting with the sweaters, cardigans, and slipovers, this year I completed 8, 6 of which were my own design. First is the Aspyn sweater. It's a DK weight bottom-up sweater with different types of cables and a textured moss stitch on the sides and sleeves. This was my second sample of this pattern and was knit up in Filcolana Pernilla in the color Marzipan. It was a bit thinner than the gauge, so I went up a size and knit it in a smaller needle size. After a hiatus with my yarn not coming in time, I had to knit it in about a week to get it completed before the pattern was released. I'm very happy with the color and my husband actually picked it out. Looking back now, I would probably use a yarn that was a little bit less rustic, like West Yorkshire Spinners Blueface Leicester, or even Knit Pick Swish DK. That would be super squishy and soft. Next is the Haylee sweater. It was my first top-down design and first European drop shoulder construction. It has all over big squishy cables, an oversized collar, and button placket. It was knit in drop soft tweed, which was very much not my favorite yarn to work with, and needless to say, I do not have the sample anymore. I would love to reknit it in a different DK weight yarn that's more enjoyable to work with than my original yarn choice. Third is the Myra sweater by Russ Knitwear. I was kindly gifted a sweater's quantity of Hobie Friends wool to make a garment in the shade of red. So I chose pink. A few years ago, I actually test knitted this sweater pattern for Simone and I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to try and knit it in a yarn a little bit thinner than recommended. Its gauge is in a chunky weight yarn, but the yarn I used was worsted. It was fairly straightforward knitting a size or two up and spacing out the texture pattern so it would look like the original even though my row gauge was off. It is knit from the top down, starting with short rows and raglan increases. It features a turtleneck, which I made a little bit shorter, and an all-over simple pearl bump texture. Fourth is the Lucille sweater. This yarn was also gifted by Hobie to do a spring design inspired by nature. It was a fun challenge to design an all-over lace pattern. I used Hobie Friends Extra Fine Merino in, unintentionally, the same colorway as the Myra sweater. If I were to knit this again, I probably would use a different yarn, one that is less round and crisp and doesn't show imperfections as clearly. It is knit from the bottom up and features slight balloon sleeves and scalloped edges. Fifth is a design that I made for our channel, the Arthur vest. I started it back in April or May, and it was released in August. I had never knit a V-neck, let alone designed one or a slipover. I also had a lot of fun figuring out how to knit the plaid pattern so it wasn't all over color work, wasting, in my opinion, a lot of yarn. I used Cascade Yarns 220 in the colors camel and burgundy. It's a worsted weight Peruvian Highland wool and it knit up pretty quickly, even with me figuring out the kinks and designing it as I went. You can watch my process of designing it with a link in the description. Sixth is my very first Christmas sweater, the Christmas Market sweater that was actually knit starting in July and was released this fall. My third project using Hobie yarn this year, and this time was with their thinner DK weight Highland wool. I actually made the colorwork chart for it last Christmas, but just didn't have the time to complete it for the holidays then, so I was so excited to be able to see my design come to life this year. It is a top-down, round yoke sweater with festive colorwork on the yoke with trees, snowflakes, and reindeer. I chose marzipan as my main and artichoke melange as my accent color. I would have loved to have knitted it with a maroon main or accent color, but unfortunately it was out of stock at that time. I knit it more oversized than I typically knit my sweaters, and I would probably just knit my normal size if I were to do it again. Seventh is a sample knit I did for my friend Allison of Allie B's workshop. This is called the Be Thankful Cardigan by Lily Kate France. It is a bottom-up, V-neck, very oversized cardigan with balloon sleeves. I used Allison's hand-dyed, worsted weight, superwash merino wool yarn in the color evergreen. It was a fun knit and a much-needed brain break knitting someone else's design. The final sweater I completed this year is the Warm Vanilla Sugar Sweater, released not too long ago, just before Christmas. Another design I've had in my head for quite some time and was so excited to see it come to life. As soon as we reviewed the Eddie Bauer Woolpacka DK yarn in August, I knew it was perfect for this project. It's a top-down drop shoulder construction with a 3x3 rib and big squishy cables on the front and is mirrored on the back. It also features an optional folded turtleneck. I personally think it would look so nice in a maroon or a bright holiday red color, definitely something I might have to knit up in time for the next holiday season. Next, we have accessories, 2 of which were gifted. First is a pair of mittens. I asked my mother-in-law what she would like for her birthday, and she said a pair of mittens and gave me free reign over pattern and color. I decided to use Cascade Yarn's 220 Superwash, something hardy but also soft. I chose the color 359 Aspen Heather, a light gray, and used 57 grams of yarn. For the pattern, I wanted something simple but also textured and came across this free pattern Timber Mittens by Agnes Brandels. It's actually not in English, but I was able to Google translate it. It was very enjoyable and engaging, and I absolutely would knit them again. Next was a gift knit for my mom, another free pattern, Jason's Cashmere hat. My first time using this pattern, but I had been eyeing it for a while. She chose the bright orange color to match her favorite sports team, and I just loved the cables and had a ton of fun knitting up this hat. I suggested Cascade Yarn's 220 Superwash Merino as it's very soft and of course machine washable. It's a worsted weight so the hat knit up fairly quickly, but was also very enjoyable too. I decided to knit the ribbing a little bit longer than the pattern recommended, trying on the hat as I went, and I just preferred the look of the longer rib section. Third is another cable knit hat, but this one was for me. I used the same Cascade Yarns 220 and the color Camel for my Jason's Cashmere hat. It is so hard to find this color, but I really love it. I'm actually not sure if the yarn is soft enough for me to wear this hat on my head, but I can always add a lightweight fabric lining if it's not. I extended the ribbing about half an inch longer than the last one I knit up. I still love this pattern and actually have 2 more planned, one in burgundy and one in cream, both feature gift knits. The next category is baby knits. We welcomed a new member to our family this fall, and I couldn't resist knitting them a few items. First is this rust-colored textured cardigan. I wanted something gender neutral and big enough for them to wear or grow into. The baby was due this fall, so I thought this rust color would be perfect. I knit it as a size 3 to 6 month, but currently they're about 4 months old and it's still too big on them, but hopefully soon though. I used the free Dream Plan cardigan pattern from Drop's Garnstudio and the hurdle stitch to create the texture that I wanted. I used a hand-dyed superwash merino yarn from J'adore Fibers. The second and last baby knit I completed is this garter stitch bonnet. Also something that is still way too large for the baby, but still cute nonetheless. I used the free, big, barely bonnet pattern by Pure Stitches. I knit the 3 to 6 month size, and yes, I met gauge with Cream Casole wool, the Mary Merino 140 in color 2. Maybe my tension got more loose after knitting my swatch. Another first, I had never made a bonnet before or knit an I-cord. It is so squishy and cute and fairly gender neutral, I think. I decided to omit the bare ears, but I'm thinking I need to knit another one with the ears because they really are adorable. And the last category is what I currently have on the needles. There's just a few, but I originally planned to have them finished before the end of the year. First is the cardigan version of my Aspyn sweater. I love how my first and last project of this year are versions of the Aspyn. I do really love the cable design, and I think a cardigan version will be so versatile. The sweater is knit from the bottom up, and instead I'm designing this cardigan to be knit from the top down. I'm using this gifted, absolutely beautiful tweed superwash merino wool yarn from Allie B's workshop and her colorway sourdough. I've made my swatches and have cast it on, and that's pretty much as far as I've gotten. But I have a feeling once I sit down to knit it, it should work up pretty quickly. And last is 2 matching projects, a pair of rust-colored cable knit hats. Once reviewing the Knit Pick Swish DK, I had to order some in the worsted weight version for these projects. It was too squishy and soft for me not to. These are in the colorway Cider, nearly identical to the Red Squirrel colorway from Filcolana. Can you guess the pattern I'm using? Yep, for the adult hat, I'm using Jason's Cashmere hat pattern, extending the ribbing even more than mine, and adding an additional row in between knitting the cable crosses. And a matching baby hat using the free Riley cap pattern by Kendall Coupar in the infant size. I tried to find a pattern with similar ribbing and cables for both hats, and I'm pretty happy with how they're turning out. I can't wait to have them finished and to gift them. Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing a little behind the scenes of what projects I've worked on in 2024. Do you have a favorite project that you've made this year? We would love to hear about it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.